Hi there class. I made a tool that I'm calling 2D Mesh Editor. It lets you export mesh data from a point-and-click interface. As you can see here, it makes the creation of complex shapes a little easier. But don't get too excited. It's pretty basic and comes complete with its own set of issues. I would not be surprised if you find many bugs as well. That said, I might make updates as the course progresses, but no promises. Alright then, let's start a new mesh by clicking Create New. We can start placing points by left-clicking within one of the 4 quadrants. The center of these quadrants represents the mesh's origin point of 0, 0. Just below the color picker, you can see your mouse's current position relative to the origin. The top right corner represents a position of 1, 1 and the bottom left corner -1, -1. I hope this makes sense so far. If not, you're in trouble. Lol. We can save and load our meshes from the top left. It's important to note that this saves a file which is read by this tool. It's not intended to be imported into your game, although I suppose you could. I would not recommend. Instead, click the Export button. The exporter will copy code into your clipboard, which can be pasted right into your code. I strongly recommend you find a way to keep this code from cluttering important CPP files. Remember, poor Jimmy needs to be able to examine your work. So at the very least, put this at the bottom of your file. There are 2 settings in the export menu. 1. How many attributes, X and Y only, or XYRGBA? It will be up to you to implement this, but I can help you too. Just message me on Discord. 2. The number of vertices to export on a single line. This does not change how the code works at all. It is intended to help keep your code tidy. For example, if you have 50 vertices and only 1 vertex per line, you will be pasting 54 lines of code. It might be better to have 5 vertices per line, in which case you have 14 lines. Play with it and find out what works best for you and your mesh. Clicking the Export to Clipboard button does just that. Hopefully, the program I wrote doesn't crash and burn, but we'll see I guess. Note that there is currently no means to set alpha, and it will automatically be set to 1. Back in the designer, if we want to move existing points, we can either use the middle mouse button, or the left button while holding Ctrl. To delete a point, simply right-click on it. If you hold Ctrl and hold right-click, you can delete a little faster. We can set the color we want to draw with from the color picker. There is no means to save a color palette at the moment. Oh well. We can also paint points while holding the C key. There is an issue with painting colors, however. If we have points which share a location, they will all be painted with the new color. So, it's much better to select the colors you want as you go. You may have noticed that our points snap to each other when close. To stop this, hold the H key to hide points. These controls are also shown at the bottom of the window. To change the background color, first select a color from the picker, then click the BG color button. The Set Scale button allows you to change the scale of the entire exported mesh. By default it is set to 1. If it were set to 4, then the top right corner would be 4, 4. The bottom left -4, -4. You could change this to suit your needs. However, one might consider leaving the scale at 1 for all meshes, and instead apply all scaling in your game. There is a distinct advantage to doing it this way. Because you will always know how big something is, or should be, as it's all relative to 1 and -1. It's up to you. The next button down. Terribly named change, will cycle through primitive types. There are currently 4. Lines. Line strips. Triangles. And triangle fan. Note that this is not exported as part of your mesh. It's used for display purposes. There is a way to render your meshes in all 4 ways in your game. It should be easy enough to figure out on your own. Hint, look in your code, where you draw your mesh. Also note, as you can see, changing the type can have unexpected results on an existing mesh. And unless you're aiming for abstract art, it may cause you problems. It's best to start drawing with a type already in mind, as changing it after, like the Hyperloop, has little chance of success, and a high chance of doom. The last button toggles a grid, complete with snapping. There are 10 rows and columns, and currently no way to change this. If you're not seeing the grid, try changing the background color. I may update this later to include alpha and UVs, but I'm unsure at the moment. If anyone has other features they'd like to see, or bugs to report, feel free to message me, and I'll consider. But I don't intend on building up too big on this. At a certain point, it would end up being easier to make an exporter from existing software like Blender. I have one final tip, try to keep vertices to a minimum. Play around with the different primitive types to find which will accomplish the same look with less vertices for the mesh you're drawing. Thank you very much for your time. You're beautiful. Please enjoy your day. I have to go now, and eat my pizza pockets, as a 30-year-old man. Please pray for me.